Greetings, ladies, gentlemen, and others. Welcome to my Jolly Scholar Triple H series, Blockchain to Metaverse, an introduction for the uninitiated. This is discussion number 5, an introduction to the Ethereum blockchain. This series is intended for 2 categories of viewers. The first are those of you who know very little about the subject and are looking for a basic overview of blockchain technologies. If you are completely unfamiliar with the crypto space, then I strongly suggest that you watch the previous 4 discussions in this series. You can still derive a lot from this discussion without having viewed the previous ones. However, you'll get a lot more out of the technological side if you have. But you can also go back to them after watching this one. Now, the second category is those of you who are already familiar with the subject but are interested in seeing these technologies contextualized within a philosophical framework. This framework, the one I'm embracing, is the deconstruction and resistance to all forms of centralized power with a focus on technology as a powerful tool to that end. I call this approach techno-anarchism. If we place that resistance in today's social-political spectrum, we are primarily focused on resistance to global socialism. We are also dedicated advocates of the great American experiment, and we view these new technologies as tools that are accelerating the great experiment. I call the American experience the great reversal, a theme that I've discussed previously and one that will feature prominently throughout this work. Okay, so almost everyone on the planet has at least heard the name Bitcoin. After Bitcoin, the next most well-known blockchain is Ethereum. However, as far as the name recognition goes, it's a far second. A year or so ago, almost no one outside the crypto world had ever heard the name Ethereum. Even now, with the rise of cryptocurrencies under public awareness, few people still have any idea what Ethereum is. But what Bitcoin is to the entire crypto world, Ethereum is to the altcoin explosion. The proliferation of blockchains and their corresponding currencies was ignited by the Ethereum blockchain. So with Ethereum, we had the decentralized application. And with the decentralized application at scale, we have the potential for decentralized finance on a large scale. And it is decentralized finance that holds the promise of a truly revolutionary economic system. A completely decentralized financial system for the world. As will become apparent to you as we continue, this can and is changing the world we live in. It may not come to full fruition, and there are many forces who definitely don't want that to ever happen. But the potential is there, and hopefully, now that it's out, it will become inevitable. But furthermore, the Ethereum decentralized apps are of course not limited to applications that pertain solely to the financial sector. Using your smartphone as a parallel analogy, smart applications have a scope only limited by the imagination, the logic of coding, and the limitations of the hardware. As we will see, the Ethereum blockchain was specifically designed to create a blockchain that could support an array of applications with equal capabilities, but far more complexity. And of course, the benefits of blockchain technology, which is decentralization and security. Another important feature of the Ethereum blockchain is that it is open source. The powerful open source protocols of the Ethereum, what's called virtual machine, make the blockchain extremely attractive to programmers and innovators who want to create dApps, decentralized applications, using Ethereum's blockchain technology. In other words, some of the greatest minds in new software technologies are working either directly, indirectly, or as a consequence of the Ethereum blockchain's open source protocols. But before we explore the Ethereum blockchain a little deeper, we need to introduce the central figure in the development of the Ethereum blockchain, Vitalik Buterin. I'm just going to cover the basics. You can Google him, follow him on social media. He's very prominent. I want to place him in perspective, his role as one of the great innovators of our time. Vitalik was born on January 31st, 1994 at the small Russian town of Koloma. He is the son of Dmitry Buterin, a computer scientist, and Natalia Amelin. Buterin's family moved to Canada when he was 6 years old. At school, his teachers realized right away that he was extremely gifted. I mean, these are just basic facts. By 2010, Vitalik had become obsessed with the World of Warcraft video game. But when the developers of the game made some changes that were unpalatable to him, he quit the game entirely. Here we see again something I've pointed out numerous times, the role that gaming has consistently played throughout the development of crypto all the way to the metaverse. Vitalik is still fascinated with gaming. Around the time of his early gaming years, Vitalik heard about the peer-to-peer cryptocurrency called Bitcoin from his father. But the idea of a digital currency didn't catch his attention. His initial thought about the currency was that it was not going to succeed, and therefore he didn't pay attention to it. However, his engagements online led to another eventual run-in with Bitcoin in 2011, and this time he did pay attention. He got engrossed in Bitcoin and the blockchain technology, but could not afford to mine the coin or purchase Bitcoins. Now, I covered Bitcoin mining in the Bitcoin mechanics discussion, so if you're not familiar with that, you can look back on it. He decided to work for some coins and started scavenging for freelance work on the Bitcoin forums. His first work was writing articles about blockchain and Bitcoin for a blog where he got paid 5 Bitcoins per article. At the time, these coins were worth $3.50. Imagine, that was just 10 years ago. Bitcoin is now hovering in the 35,000 range. If he kept them, then he actually wrote each article for $150,000. The demand for the blog fell, however, due to lack of interest from the community, and the owner had to shut it down. Soon after, Vitalik was approached by an online acquaintance about starting a magazine that focused on Bitcoin. The individual's name was Mihai Alizi, a Romanian-based Bitcoin enthusiast. Vitalik had impressed him with his articles, of course, and together they created the Bitcoin magazine in late 2011, and Vitalik became the head writer. Now, in one of Vitalik's world tours, he stopped by Israel to interact with some developers who were trying to build decentralized applications on the Bitcoin blockchain. They were having a hard time figuring out a way to make this happen. And this is, as we've covered in the Bitcoin mechanics discussion, because Bitcoin was built with limited features by design to increase its security. Vitalik thought that a great solution for such a problem would be to build a programming language that would enable developers to create applications for the Bitcoin blockchain. In one interview, he said, quote, "Those in the Bitcoin community weren't approaching the problem in the right way. I thought they were going after individual applications. They were trying to kind of explicitly support each use case in a sort of Swiss Army knife protocol," unquote. This idea was edited later with some feedback and research, and he decided to create a platform that would enable developers to create any type of application that would enable unlimited problem solving. Here we see the seeds of just how revolutionary Ethereum was to become. Similar to Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever that turns out to be, he realized that he needed input and help to create the system, and therefore he wrote his idea in a white paper and announced his project in late 2013. Initially, he sent the white paper to a few friends on his address book, but those friends forwarded the email to their friends, and more than 30 people got back expressing an interest in joining the project. Now, the white paper is something you'll often encounter in the cryptocurrency sector. Almost every project will post its white paper, an outline of the basic idea and how the people behind it intend to carry it out. It's an important document to look at before investing in any product. The white papers are also used to openly solicit investors for projects that have not yet been funded, or in the case of Vitalik's project, to solicit collaborators. Later in the series, we might be covering white papers and how you can get what they call whitelisted. It's a term for getting into the early stages of a project that you might want to invest in. As expressed in the white paper, the idea behind Ethereum was to, quote, "create an alternative protocol for building decentralized applications, providing a different set of trade-offs that we believe will be very useful for a large class of decentralized applications, with particular emphasis on situations with rapid development time, security for small and rarely used applications, and the ability of different applications to very efficiently interact are important," unquote. The quote is very revealing. What he was proposing was a blockchain with a broad potential to accommodate applications that had not even been thought of yet. He was not trying to address specific apps, but rather any app whatsoever. His objectives led us to what we have now, the potential for a new, complete, and decentralized economic system. This is not an exaggeration. Blockchain and cryptocurrencies now have the potential to compete with and even replace entire banking systems for the whole world. Why? Because by having the vision of a blockchain that is flexible enough to accommodate a wide variety of different applications, he laid the foundations for a complete system of interacting applications on a decentralized blockchain. That is, the blockchain can accommodate apps that haven't even been thought of, a variety of apps at scale. When you put enough decentralized applications that are related to finance, you create a financial system. In the beginning, it's a mini system, but the potential is really unlimited. But let's look back for a moment to the legacy of the crypto pioneers, those that we covered in the brief history of Bitcoin discussion. It's about 2 videos back. We can see that Vitalik was definitely with them philosophically. When asked why he got into crypto, quote, to empower the little guy, screw the big guy. They already have enough money, unquote. Yeah, it's a little sophomoric perhaps, but it shows what his intentions were. Another quote, I saw everything to do with either government regulation or corporate control as being just plain evil, unquote. And he hasn't changed from that position at all. Just follow him on social media. It's obvious. What he is actually advocating is decentralization and ownership in the economic system for those who participate in it. He's definitely a force for the grand reversal that I've been describing. He's definitely in the tradition of the American experiment. The original core team of Ethereum developers consisted of Vitalik Buterin, Mihai Alisi, Anthony Delorio, Charles Hoskinson, Joe Lubin, and Gavin Wood. Now, we'll be talking more about Charles Hoskinson and Gavin Wood in the next video. After a few months of troubleshooting and brainstorming, the project was formally announced in January 2014. Vitalik made the announcement at a Bitcoin conference in Miami. Later that year, the team decided to conduct a crowd sale to fund the development of the project. The token for the project was named Ether. Now it's the coin ETH. And the crowd sale managed to raise 31,000 Bitcoins, at the time worth close to $18 million. It was around this time that Vitalik received the Thiel Fellowship grant that was worth $100,000. By the way, you have to be under 22 years old to receive a Thiel Fellowship grant. This first version of Ethereum available to the public was launched on July 30th, 2015. That's only going on 8 years. It was a basic bare bones release to beta in order to stress test it. Ethereum has since grown through several iterations and versions. Ethereum is now ranked as the second largest cryptocurrency by market cap after Bitcoin, with a market value of about $20 billion. Bitcoin's value is about $110 billion. Close to 20,000 projects have since been launched on the Ethereum blockchain. Now, that article was written on October 23rd, 2018. Since then, Ethereum is now at $286.5 billion in just over 3 years. And Bitcoin is at $675.4 billion. In those 3 years, Ethereum has gone 24x and Bitcoin 6x. At this rate, Ethereum could well exceed Bitcoin in market capitalization in just a few more years. If that happens, people in the field are calling it the flippening. So my takeaways for now. Vitalik Buterin is only 28 years old, and he is changing the world we live in. Vitalik, besides being brilliant, is a real entrepreneur. He is what I think the Elon Musk of crypto. As we will see, he takes risks. Rather than wait for everything to be perfect, as some of his former co-workers do, he'll go for it, crash and burn as Elon Musk has done, and simply pick himself up and get back to work fixing the solution or fixing the problem. But this is what it takes to really change the world. I want to make a brief pause here and ask an obvious question, right? How is Ethereum still like Bitcoin? Because that's important too. If you watch my Bitcoin mechanics discussion number 2 in this series, you have a good idea of how the Bitcoin blockchain works, and you also know the fundamentals of how any proof of work network of computers consisting of nodes and miners work to process, secure, and maintain a blockchain. You also already know what is meant by decentralized, and how that is achieved by the same network of nodes and mining computers that are spread all over the world. So Ethereum is like Bitcoin in that it is decentralized, deploys proof of work to process and secure the blockchain, and of course it's immutable. It can't be changed. Therefore, it's very secure. Now, it's not quite impregnable. As Bitcoin has so far proven to be, Bitcoin has never been hacked. While Ethereum has had some issues, but Ethereum is still nonetheless extremely secure. But the real important question is, of course, the obvious, and we've already answered this in part. How is Bitcoin different? So as we've already made clear, Ethereum is far more scalable than Bitcoin. That's obvious. We talked about the problems of scalability with Bitcoin in the previous video. So it's far more scalable than Bitcoin. though as we will see, it still has some issues. For those of you who are a little more familiar with blockchain technology, you know that scalability is the weak side of Bitcoin. The blockchain trilemma, first introduced by Vitalik, is decentralization, security, and scalability, or speed. You can be very strong on any two, but the third will always be problematic. Bitcoin is very strong on decentralization and security, but very weak on the scalability side. Ethereum is capable of hosting a near limitless diversity of decentralized smart apps, or dApps, called decentralized applications, and able to scale them to an impressive degree. That's the real sea change. A system of decentralized apps that can be scaled. The currency coin called ETH is produced, that's minted, by the work performed on the Ethereum blockchain, as is the case with Bitcoin. If you are not familiar with the relationship between the minted coin of a blockchain and the process of the blockchain itself, it is the critical aspect of blockchain financial implications and in direct opposition to fiat, the present system. Why that is so important and how it works, I covered in the last three discussions. However, unlike Bitcoin that has a permanent 21 million cap, Ethereum has no long-term cap, but it does have an 18 million cap on the number of ETH that can be minted in a single year. In order to maintain that cap, the concept of burning was introduced. Burning is when a certain amount of ETH, the Ethereum coin or monetary currency that operates on the blockchain, that is circulated back onto the blockchain, usually through gas fees, can be burned. Basically means destroyed after a transaction in order to reduce the number of ETH in circulation. This is done to keep the 18 million cap in place. It's not exactly anti-inflationary, and ETH is not considered at this time to be a rival to Bitcoin as a stored value. However, it has been speculated that this could happen in the future. Ethereum's market cap, as we pointed out earlier, could overtake Bitcoin, and the value of ETH could in fact start to operate as a stored value as well, and then act as a kind of silver to the Bitcoin gold. Some commentators have called that, as we said, the flippening. If you don't quite understand these concepts, then again, I suggest you go over the previous discussions. But the short takeaway is that cryptocurrencies are in many ways the opposite of fiat. They may be volatile in the short run, but in the long run, they offer a far more valuable currency that benefits the people who engage with it in a way that fiat does not. Fiat is designed on purpose to be easily manipulatable and to, over the long run, become virtually worthless. But more on that later, and again, I also covered it pretty good detail in the previous videos. It was Vitalik Buterin, as we mentioned in discussion number 4, Implications of Bitcoin, who first identified the blockchain trilemma, the one that we just talked about: security, decentralization, scalability. You can achieve any two decisively, but the third element will then be problematic. Now, in the case of Bitcoin, it's decisive on decentralization, decisive on security. It's never been hacked. That's pretty impressive. It has never been hacked, but it's very weak on scalability. And that's a problem when you want to talk about creating an entire financial system. But for Ethereum, scalability is one of its greatest strengths. But the strength is not just in scalability of a single dimension, speed of transactions. For a truly decentralized financial system to come into being, there needs to be a scalability of complexity. The blockchain must be capable of processing many different kinds of transactions. Most importantly, as already pointed out, a broad array of different smart transactions. If Ethereum and cryptocurrency in general is to replace the current fiat economic system, it must be able to perform all kinds of transactions, just as the fiat system does. And this is precisely what Vitalik's vision had in mind from the start. Ethereum can carry out even new kinds of transactions that the current banking system hasn't even conceived of, much less developed, but without sacrificing decentralization or scalability. It was the Ethereum blockchain developed by Buterin's team that first brought smart decentralized applications, or dApps, onto a blockchain with enough scalability to make them fully functional. But we must re-emphasize, not just specific dApps or even known dApps, but even those that were yet to come into being. Ethereum is so flexible and complex that it is capable of accommodating new dApps with functions that were not even thought of at the time Ethereum first went into operation. This was precisely what Buterin had anticipated and what he designed Ethereum to do. That was his goal from the beginning and his great achievement. Recall that NFTs did not even exist when Ethereum was first launched. Yet Ethereum accommodated not just the silly avatar aspect of the NFT, but the full evolution of the NFT and its current ongoing proliferation into nearly every aspect of social and economic exchanges. From avatars to functional NFTs within the gaming space to Metaverse, Metaverse real estate, and actual real estate. I did an overview of NFTs in the introduction of the series, and I'll be doing a follow-up video. But the NFT phenomenon is also in itself revolutionary, and they are a direct derivative of blockchain technology. Blockchain gaming also did not exist at the launching of Ethereum, yet now blockchain gaming is becoming an entire industry all on its own. So let's reemphasize the massive Ethereum achievement. Ethereum has brought DeFi into being. Let that sink in. Vitalik Buterin and his team at Ethereum made the very concept of a decentralized financial system for the entire world no longer a dream, but a real possibility. Every individual can own a part of and profit from the economic system in which they are participating in. Bitcoin hinted at that possibility, but Ethereum is making it real. Now let's look at what we mean by the expansive Ethereum ecosystem. Take a look at this map. This is a chart of applications that are built on the Ethereum blockchain. I mean, it's hardly all of them, but it's categorized into all the different types of apps. And that's what we're going to run through right now. Not all the different types, but the main types. Okay, we have DeFi lending and borrowing applications. That's one group. Small contracts between entities and institutions that have developed many different kinds of borrowing and lending protocols. There are high interest rates that can be made by staking. Now, staking is something unique to cryptocurrency. It's a new way to earn interest on your money, on your even your NFT investments. You can earn on liquidity, coins, or other assets, and lending and borrowing pools that earn interest rates that seem almost too good to be true. Now, it's interesting how it works, but between 8% and as high as 14% are not uncommon, with an average of between 4% and 12%. Now, you're earning the interest in the coin of that particular app, that particular DApp, decentralized application. So there's a certain volatility in it. However, it works out really well. And it's an excellent way to invest, and I'll be letting you know how I'm doing in that area. Okay, the next is the DEX, DEX. It's decentralized trading and exchange. These are platforms for buying, selling, or trading cryptocurrencies and other blockchain assets. Now, these exchanges there's at least one or two on every blockchain, right? Every blockchain has its own decentralized exchange, just about every one of them. On the screen, you'll see some of the more well-known. One of them is Uniswap, and the other one is SushiSwap. The cryptocurrency world likes to have curious names like that. These are pretty complex. You learn how to use them, but it's not easy in the beginning, and we'll get to that. When we talk about the proliferation of the altcoin blockchains, we're going to go into a little bit more detail, but right now I just want to let you know that that's one classification of a decentralized application. It's the DEX, the DEX. So now we get to the launch pads. These are platforms for new projects to raise money or solicit developers across the entire spectrum of applications. Some launch pads are dedicated specifically to finance, others to gaming, NFTs, metaverses, or something completely new. These sites will also solicit for new projects and offer grants or other incentives for developers to submit their proposals. So the platforms don't just launch other people's projects, they often present their own projects. Here you will find many of those white papers we spoke of earlier. But even projects that are already launched keep their white papers and roadmaps available to the public. Now, one of the purposes of the launch pads is to solicit applications, offer grants for new projects, present new projects, and usually so that they'll operate on that blockchain, right? There'll be an Ethereum launchpad, and it's usually for Ethereum projects. There'll be, say, an Avalanche launchpad, and it's for Avalanche. Cardano's for Cardano. These are different blockchains. It's not always the case that they'll launch only for their particular blockchain, but that's usually the rule. Now we get to the DAO, D-A-O. Not the Chinese DAO. Okay, so the DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. It's a protocol for self-organized, self-governing communities that come into being as trustless, decentralized, transparent, and secure vehicles for maintaining a community or business enterprise. That is, a community comes together and they establish rules and protocols that are programmed into the blockchain. So everyone who is participating in this community, whatever that they're doing with each other, they may not even know each other. It's like, again, it's a virtual machine. And so all the interactions are set through the protocols. So governance, for instance, this is how you change rules or you don't change rules. It's carried out by those who have staked liquidity and or are running nodes for the system. So the decentralized autonomous organization will have its own, could be just a few computers, it could be a larger network of computers, but they'll run in the same way as for the security and decentralization as the larger network will run, say, for an entire blockchain. So the community governs the DAO by various voting strategies. That is, changes in policy and rules can only be initiated by the community operating the DAO. But the agreed upon rules must be adhered to because there's no other option. Any attempt to do otherwise will be thrown out by the protocol, just as any attempt to create a false block on Ethereum's blockchain or the Bitcoin blockchain would be thrown out. And again, if you understand how blockchains work, then you understand how that works. Again, trustless. The people set the rules and then have no choice but to follow them if they're going to participate and engage in this decentralized autonomous organization. This has really incredible potential. You have to think that through, and we'll cover a few, again, in the next video to show you how they work. But right now, this is just a general overview. This is the kind of application that's made possible by the Ethereum blockchain. Now, of course, there are many blockchains, and these decentralized applications operate on all of them. But most of them were first developed on Ethereum. So we haven't covered all the different kinds of applications. But as you can see, Ethereum has provided for the foundations of a complete decentralized financial system, completely self-sustaining and owned by the people who engage with it. The next two sectors, whose very existence was also first enabled by Ethereum, are gaming and NFTs. I'm only going to mention them briefly because I'll be dedicating separate discussions to each one of them. The NFT. We've discussed what we think is the enormous transformative potential of the NFT phenomenon. We must reemphasize that NFTs are direct derivatives of blockchain technology. The NFT phenomenon was born on Ethereum, and Ethereum is still the host for the vast majority of NFT minting. OpenSeas is the #1 platform for the minting, buying, and selling of NFTs, and it's on Ethereum. Now, NFTs did not exist when Ethereum first came out, yet Ethereum accommodated them perfectly. This is what I mean by the foresight of Vitalik Buterin. Now, blockchain gaming. Blockchain gaming was first made possible, again, on the Ethereum blockchain. As we've already pointed out in previous discussions, gaming is what led to the Metaverse, and both have been around for about 20 years. Metaverses operate the same way online gaming does. You might have to kind of, if you've never been into gaming and never been into Metaverse, you might wonder, well, what's the connection? The only way to really appreciate that is to go ahead and start looking into gaming and then look into Metaverse and you'll see the connection. So with blockchain gaming has come blockchain Metaverse. So of course, the first blockchain Metaverses appeared on Ethereum as well. So with that, I'm going to end part 1 of my discussion on Ethereum. I hope you'll join me for part 2, where I'll cover the major changes Ethereum is undergoing and what I hope will be its very bright future. And by the way, did I mention that Marxism must be driven out of our universities? Just a thought.